I'm curious about systems of information and ways of seeing, and sometimes that manifests as patterns in nature, sometimes observable phenomenon. And I investigate those systems. And I then translate that information, that data through the hand, through a repeated gesture into an object. And that act of translation offers a lens to see that information differently. So this body of work is the same, even though from the outside it looks so remarkably different. It sort of has this, more pop art affiliated with the emojis and this sort of pop culture. The previous project that I did was at the Radcliffe Institute on 19th century astronomers. So it's certainly a different leap in subject matter, but the intent is the same. Here are these systems of information. I'm investigating how meaning is created, and through the act of translation, trying to see things differently. So with emojis, here is this new way of communicating, a new language that we are collectively and individually shaping. So I was interested to see how individual voices are emerging, how we're communicating, how relationships are being built, how pattern comes into play, how design and visual flair comes into play, how all those factors sort of shape this new form of meaning. And by translating the emojis into drawings, that we look a little more closely, pay a little deeper attention, and see them in a different way. So initially, that active translation was the most interesting to me. For this body of work, I wanted to take actual texts, translate them into drawings, and sort of in that way land the information in the body through the act of the hand, through the act of drawing, and land it in the material. Here are these very laboriously hand-drawn objects, so they're landing in the body, landing in the material. So that on its own is a very interesting shift that I wanted to examine. But now with the pandemic and this time of self-isolation, I'm seeing how the virtual and the real, how these two poles kind of interact with each other, and that instead of sort of landing in one camp or the other, and those being separate worlds, that we travel this sort of continuous circuit between the two poles. So we're constantly navigating this space of of the virtual and the real, and that they intermingle and influence each other more than I realized. Thinking of ways that my drawings and my stitch works are connected, the process behind them is almost identical. I'm taking research, I'm taking observations, and through this repeated gesture of the hand, in the case of the textiles, it's the repeated stitch. In the case of drawings, it's just, the making of a mark. So repeating these gestures to build meaning, to build an object, and have that object become a vehicle for the ideas. To me, it's interesting to sort of invest one's time, to invest one's attention into an object, and let that object be the thing that sort of takes the idea out into the world. Idea of repetition is so interesting to me in what new possibilities, what new connections can be made. And that is related to how, we live our lives. So we have generally fairly set daily routines, from waking up in the morning and brushing our teeth and having our, morning cup of coffee. We have these repeated actions, and how can we step into those actions with awareness, with attention, and with kind of a noticing of what is present and what is different, what new ways of being are there. So to me, repetition is actually central to the way we live our lives, the ways we live in relationship, and the ways we build meaning.